All right, welcome everyone. I'm Adam Kiefer and Elizabeth,
Yeah, hi.
and we're facilitating this hour that's going to go by really fast. Hopefully, be really helpful for you guys. So, thank you for coming on time. Um, we want to start on time because we've got a lot to get to in this hour, and so if you come a little bit late, that's okay. We're recording this, so we're supposed to have 30 people. So, if you don't mind leaving your camera off and your mic muted, unless you'd like to talk, so just raise your hand or turn on. Let us know in the chat, and we'll happily call on you. But well, let's get started. So this is a refresher for certified teachers. So hopefully you're here because you're already certified and you're um, just looking to remember, get kickstarted again, ask questions, all of those things. That's why we're here to help you with that. So our agenda is really simple. Just talk about the instruction content requirement, record keeping. We've got several exemplars of TVM lessons. We'll have a couple short discussions around that. And then hopefully, if we have time at the end, time for questions. So anytime you guys have a question, feel free to raise your hand or or let us know in the chat. We'll try to monitor that. All right. Elizabeth, I'll let you take it over from here.
To unmute. Okay. So just a reminder for those of you, I know a lot of people completed their TVM certification right when it started in 2021. And then in 2022, there was a change to the requirement that all TVM lessons have to have asynchronous instruction. So you need all three parts, instruction, practice, and assessment within one TVM lesson. And students need to be able to complete the TVM lesson without having participated in synchronous or class time instruction. Um, if it's just practice, then it's not TVM, it's homework. The asynchronous instruction doesn't have to be new content, but ideally it will be a new lesson. For example, probably not the exact same Google Slides that you used in class. We can keep going. Oh, sorry, you hadn't shown that slide. Okay, so I just talked through that. And then we'll keep going to the next one. Um, and just as a reminder, this is actually because it's state statute that we can't count homework for proxy hours, but we can count interactive distance learning. You can go on to the next one. So instruction, I'm sorry, go back one. Instruction means interaction with learning materials. Um, so if you're doing a paper-based lesson, maybe you're having students read an excerpt of a textbook or a workbook or an article, or maybe you're having them view slides. Maybe you print out paper copies of your slides. If you're using more technology, you have online lessons. You have a lot more options. You can have students view a screencast or another instructional video that you yourself created or that somebody else created. Or if you are teaching a synchronous online class or a HyFlex class, you could actually record your class. And that way, students who couldn't attend the synchronous class could watch the class and then do some practice and assessment activities, and that could count as a TVM lesson. You can keep going. Okay, so there are some things that don't count as instruction. Um, if if you can't verify that the students actually read or viewed or interacted with the learning materials, then that can't count as instruction. Um, if students aren't interacting with the materials, like maybe you have them take guided notes or fill in a graphic organizer or write a reflection about what they learned. It has to be interactive in some way. And also something that we have noticed doing certification coaching calls and in audits is sometimes the materials that people provide, they teach content, but it's not the same content that is aligned with your TVM lesson objectives and standards. For example, somebody wanted to include a ReadWorks passage and count that as their instruction. But it wasn't, the objective for the lesson was a grammar point. And so the ReadWorks passage was not really teaching anyone about the grammar point. So they needed to add more to that lesson to fully have instruction. We can go to the next slide. Um,
So I'm gonna just chat out a document which you guys may not remember, but it's just a longer version of this slide. It's kind of a table that helps you understand um, the difference of what we're hoping you guys are, or we're all doing with TVM lessons versus homework, okay? And homework, again, not allowed for proxy hours, not allowed for distance learning hours, but TVM lessons are. And so that document there, you may have seen in the course, you may remember it, but there I've just chatted it for your convenience. Oh, and by the way, I should remark that every single resource we may chat out or show you, we're going to send to you when we send you your CEUs. So we'll send you all these slides with your CEUs. So don't feel like you have to bookmark or remember every single thing we put in the chat. Um, so yeah, clear delineation is what that document's all about. Homework is typically only practice here. Go do that. And TVM lesson has a lot more wraparound support, examples, feedback, etc.
okay. And I don't want to be overkill here, but just a reminder that everything we teach in Minnesota adult education has to be related to at least one of our sets of standards. Okay, so you got your three monkeys there, the CCRS, the TIF, and North Star. Okay, ideally, your lesson also focuses on a core content area, and those are reading, writing, math, speaking, listening, ESL, and/or GED, diploma, high school equivalency content. If you're not sure about this, you can refer to that eligible content policy that Adam just chatted out, and I'll chat it out again because it's a little embarrassing, but the MNABE website is quite old and your browser might tell you that it's not secure. It actually is fine. You can go there. To access it, you might need to click on the advanced options in your browser. We can go to the next slide. So also important to remember, if you aren't teaching core content in your TVM lesson, this is acceptable. I myself have done many lessons that are just focused on digital literacy, which is not considered a core content area, even though we have a whole set of North Star standards about them. But you are responsible for ensuring that learners are receiving core content instruction somewhere else, either elsewhere in your class or they're enrolled in a different class that covers core content. And just a reminder, this is a screenshot from the lesson submission form that you are agreeing when you do TVM lessons that your lesson does include something related to our content standards and it addresses core ABE content. And if it's only non-core content, you make sure that learners are getting it elsewhere. We can go on. And just a reminder, we still have our lesson plan template, which you are not required to use now that you are certified. But I myself use it. I find it helpful just to make sure I have all the parts that I need to have in there. And I find it really helpful for record keeping if I just quickly, bullet point out what I'm doing in the lesson and what materials I'm using. I'll chat that link out to you as well. This is a forced copy link, so you'll have to sign into a Google account and it will make a copy in your Google Drive. We can keep going.
All right, we're going to pause here just for a minute. And I'm going to show you some things that a teacher who is assigning, let's decide what they're assigning. Maybe it's TVM, maybe it's homework. I'm going to just show you a couple things that a teacher might say. And we're going to just have a quick discussion about what's missing or what should be modified or added or supplemented to it to make it a viable TVM lesson. Okay. So, first one is the teacher says, take home this text we read together in class and read it yourself 3 times. What's something that could be added to make this a viable TVM lesson? You can turn your mic, you can chat. Anyone? Here, how about this next one? Maybe this will jog gear. Hey, watch this video before our next class.
Hi,
Okay,
this
Lynn's coming. Okay,
is
now
Lynn.
the comments are coming in. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, Jamie, did you want to say something?
Sure, but other people to chime in. It's just that
Yeah,
we don't have a way to like document if they've done it or not. So obviously we need to do something else. I think other people are saying great ideas though, like find the main
yep,
idea of the passage and yeah, so it's not
good.
still proof.
Yep, right. So, yep, yeah. So hopefully everybody can see the chat coming in. This is good. Uh-huh. Written instructions are missing. No way to verify that they've done it. Um, no response to it, right? Um, uh-huh. Sure. Yeah, I mean, great. Okay, great. So here's another one. Write 5 sentences with our vocabulary words from today. What could we add to that? Right. So I'm using these as examples we've actually seen from quote unquote TVM lessons as not enough, right? They need more. Um, Anybody have a thought about that one? Obviously, that could be part of it. What could they do? How could they submit that to a teacher? Um, Here's another one. We learned about multiplying decimals today. Now you can try to complete pages 5 to 8 in your math workbook about multiplying fractions. What's up with that one?
Amy, I love your suggestions in the chat for the
Mhm.
video. You can watch the video, take notes, list questions for clarification, find definitions for vocabulary. Um, I think, yeah, we need to have for the vocabulary one, write 5 sentences. We need to have some really clear instruction. So maybe that's a screencast that you create yourself, or maybe you print out some slides for the learners to look at. Cindy, yes, exactly.
Got it, Cindy. Good job.
Um, yeah, it sounds like the objective for that lesson was multiplying decimals. So if you're going to ask students to try something completely new, they need to get instruction on multiplying fractions first.
Good job, Cindy. A
Can
couple
we go
more.
can we go back to the 5 sentences one super
Oh yeah,
quick?
please.
So, where was I going to go with this? Hold on 1 second. Do you need, like, if you modeled a couple of them for them, would that be a way to do it too, or not?
Yeah,
Like
if you, I
modeling?
mean, that would be part of the instructions, right? Modeling would be a great thing to include in the work packet or whatever they're
Okay.
doing. Yeah, that would be helpful. Mhm. Yep, for sure.
I think it would be helpful to have specific vocabulary words that you wanted listed.
Yeah, make sure you include them in the assignment. Yep. Right. Don't just expect them to go home and remember what they are. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, great, Lynn. Mhm. Yeah, review the steps. Great. Well, a couple more here. Go to our Schoology classroom and respond to the discussion question. I mean, that's great, but a lot of stuff is missing, right? Like if you're gonna ask them to do that for proxy hours, just like all of these, we need more. We need the
I don't
full
even know where
package.
to start with that one. What is the targeted lesson? And I mean, how do you even say what the instruction part is?
Right, right. So they need a review of instruction.
And is respond to the discussion question, is that practice or assessment? Because yeah, we don't have enough information to even start.
Yeah, good. Exactly. So again, practice is great. All these things like on their own, um, all of these activities are great, but it's not TVM on their own, and we can't count them for proxy hours on their own. So you guys caught it. It's great. All right. Practice and assessment and the objectives and the activities, they should all be aligned with what's happening in class. And if you're going to err on one side, include more instruction and directions than less. So it's really clear for students. We always like to say, pretend that student didn't show up in your class. Could they complete the homework without, or could they complete the TDM lesson just by the directions and instruction you gave them? All right, great, guys. That's wonderful. Let's keep rolling here.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Adam?
Oh, of course.
I did the TVM certification like when it was first launched, so it's been a long time. But I thought I remembered that everything had to be with the idea that somebody didn't have to attend that particular lesson in order to successfully do the activity.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right? Okay. So these are crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Stacy, I feel
Yeah, I'm curious to know, so I'll use the text or the chat box.
typically that only happens when you're logged in with two devices, but I don't see your name twice, so I'm not sure what's happening. Oh, I do see your name twice, actually. So you might be logged in on two different tabs. Or maybe you just closed it. I'm not sure. Anyway, we did hear you though, so thank you. Yes, exactly. Good. Okay, let's keep going. Elizabeth?
Yeah, so we do need to go through record keeping requirements, but just kind of wanted to do a check-in. Do you want the long version or the short version? Are you feeling pretty good about record keeping, or do you have a lot of questions? Yeah, you can let us know in the chat. Justine says short. Another short. Okay. So we will try to go through this as quickly as we can. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is just a reminder about everything you need to do for documentation. This is kind of how it makes sense to me. it doesn't necessarily have to be this linear. It can be more of an iterative process. You can do things in a different order, but you do need to have all of these components. So we'll go on to the next slide. So when you're lesson planning, I like to fill out that lesson planning template. I find it really helpful. I've even made a copy and kind of made my own custom version for my setting where I've pre-filled in some things. And then I always put not submitted yet when I'm just writing the lesson. And then when I submit it, I am sure to go back and just note when I submitted it. That's going to make it a lot easier if you're ever audited. And then I save all of my lessons in a shared Google Drive folder. So I can find them all really easily, and I save them with the same title on the file that I submitted to the lesson submission form. I know it's kind of a drag maybe, but it is really important to have good records. You want to be sure that you actually are submitting all of your lessons to the submission form. You need to be able to find specific lessons in the case of an audit. And you want to make it easy on yourself to reuse things, right? You put in all this work creating the lesson. So make it easy for yourself in the future to reuse what you've already done. We can go on. So Adam,
So which one of these 4 lesson names on the bottom, which ones would you rank as number 1 and 2? Let's call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. In terms of being able to find it in the future, being able to look at the title and being able to make sense of it, being able to place it in your your scope and sequence or monthly unit. Yeah, most of you are saying 4 and 3. Yeah, I would agree. And we do have a recommendation in the course of putting TVM and your name in the title. It'd be great to, I think we require it when you use this form, the the checklist and submission form for every new lesson that you use. But as far as your own personal records, putting your name on it, putting TVM in it, and being as specific as possible is going to be helpful for you guys and for us or anyone that you share with.
yeah, and just a few quick clarifications regarding the submission form, some questions we get asked. Of course, you do not need to submit your entire lesson plan or materials to the submission form now that you're TVM certified, but you do want to save everything for yourself. Adam's just putting the link in the chat for us, I think. You don't need to have every TVM lesson approved by anyone on the DL team after you're certified. If learners have multiple options for completing what is basically the same task, like a paper copy or an online form, you don't need to submit 2 lessons. Just one is fine. And you can use the lesson as many times as you want. You do not need to fill out the form every time you assign the lesson. We'll keep going. And then also, if you make changes to your lesson, as many of us do, if the total number of proxy hours for the lesson stays the same, you don't need to resubmit it. If the proxy hours do change, then you do need to resubmit it. And I would recommend keeping the same title, but then adding like version 2 or whatever. I've done that myself a couple times. Can keep going. And then obviously this is instruction and learners need feedback on their work. So you can provide feedback in any of these ways. You can have a conference with this learner. You can do written comments on paper assignments or by email or a messaging app, or you can make comments on digital assignments. You can also, depending on what learning management system you're using, maybe you can do comments or grades or even a rubric in your LMS. And also, I often default to just using a Google form quiz, and I set it so they get immediate feedback. They can see what the right answer was and what they missed. Auto-graded tech things like that are really great for TVM. We can keep going.
So I think you guys know this, but the lesson log is on every single class page in SID. You'll see here a screenshot on the bottom right. If you forgot where it is always there, and you can download it in all the different forms that SID allows. Again, I think the Excel version is the one you would want to keep digitally and in print form. It's the one that makes the most sense, but you can save it as PDF for other types of documents as well. You don't enter proxy hours here, though those go into SID later, but this is where you keep track of the learners, what you assigned, and then who completed, how many proxy hours they earned. So of course, if you don't like that one, you can use one that Elizabeth made. If you have, especially if you have a multi-level or one-room schoolhouse situation, Elizabeth made one that's linked there, or you can make your own. But it's got to include all that stuff so that we can verify it in the future if necessary. Keep your lesson logs. All of us now, our programs have some cloud storage. I work at the Hub Center, and we use, for classroom stuff, we use Google Drive. And then for administrative stuff, we use OneDrive. So we have two cloud spaces to save. I'm sure your program has at least one. So save it there. If you don't really have a central place, I think everyone does, but then just save it in your Google Drive because everyone's got access to Google. Save a digital version, save it somewhere where it's not going to be lost. We do have these are just screenshots of the document. And then this is also just a reminder of that if you are entering proxy hours in SID, or whoever is entering proxy hours in SID at your program, it needs to be in a TVM specific class. And so it's probably not you who's going to make this class in SID, but whoever your SID point person is at your program should know how to do this. If they don't know how to do this, there's a SID support article that Elizabeth just chatted that shows you exactly how to do it with screenshots. It's really easy to do. And you can share that with your SID support person if they're not sure, or if they forgot, or if you have a new one, if there was turnover. That SID support article shows them step by step. It's really simple. So all that to say is that keep track, put the proxy hours in the right place, and you'll be your program manager will be very happy about that. And those of us who look at statewide data will also be very happy about that. All right, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so just a reminder that TVM is a unit completion distance learning platform. It is not a time on task platform. So that means all learners are going to get the same number of proxy hours for a given lesson, regardless of how much time they actually spent on it. This doesn't happen very often, but we've had a few cases where someone is using Canvas or some other fancy online system that actually tracks time on task. And they have then given each learner a different amount of time because they have that data. But that's not how we do it for TVM. So you need to just pick a number of proxy hours that you think is reasonable for that lesson, and then everybody who does that lesson gets that many hours.
And just, I'm sure you know this, but just so you know, SID only records hours in 15-minute increments. So it has to be in 15-minute increments. Reminder too.
Can I jump in right there with with that too? That
Yeah.
just a reminder that we can do a revision of our TVMs too. Like I had some that I had submitted that it ended up, the average amount of time it was taking students as they came back to me was like 3 times what I had estimated it would be. So we did a revision.
Thank you so much for saying that, Amy. Yeah, that's great. We found early on in people who were adopting TVM early, they were being really conservative in the amount of proxy hours they were estimating. And then a lot of people, just like you, Amy, found out, whoa, it took them way more time. And so that's great. That's great. I mean, it's maybe not great that it took more time. It's great that you paid attention to that fact. And then we're able to go back and collect more hours. So thank you for pointing that out. Just a quick reminder, number 2 here. Make sure you or your manager, whoever your SID point person is at your program, has added your TVM certification to your staff history in SID. If you're not able to do that yourself, again, your SID point person or your manager can do that. And you can check that. Maybe you don't even know this, but if you click on staff and SID and find your name and click on your history, you'll be able to see all kinds of fun stuff, like if you've attended Summer Institute or other certifications you might have, like ABE Foundations or CCRS trainings. In the future, we're going to be using SID more and more for keeping track of this type of stuff for PD. So one of the things there is it's called ABE staff training and then distance learning TVM certification. So make sure that's in there. And if it's not, just friendly reminder, let your SID point person know and have them put it in there for you.
Can I ask Amy how she changed the time? Because before I entered, I had my students, we did a test run, and then I did a medium. Some took longer, some took shorter. So I kind of took the middle road for mine.
Well, that's kind of what we've learned to do, but we were in the very first group. So the ones that we've had that were that far off were before we knew that we thought we had to have everything submitted through that form before we had any students do it. So, but it's just, you just go into the lesson, that template that MDE provided where we have to fill in all the information. You go in there and put in the new time, and then you save it as revision, and in your catalog or wherever you keep track of all of the TVMs that you offer, we have a catalog that all of our staff can access, and we just keep the same name with the naming template formatting that the MDE suggested, and we just put revision in front of the name, and then we resubmit it, and it just has new amount of time. So we don't redo the whole thing. We just change the time and resend it as with the same name but revision added.
Yeah, and the form Amy is referring to is what I'm showing on the screen here. So it's just the same form. So it's just a 2-minute, fill out the form one more time, exactly with word revised on it and the new proxy hours. That's it. We're not, it's not, there's no other, you don't have to wait back for confirmation or anything like that.
The thing I actually struggle with is now that I know that we can run a few students through it before we have to submit it so that we can get that time right, is I'm having trouble keeping track of which ones I actually submitted, and I've got some that students are running through and they're in our catalog, but I forgot to actually send that form in.
Okay.
I might be totally out of order with that, so if it's coming up later, just ignore me.
What I've done is I have a manila folder and I print out that form every time. And then on the top, I put processed and such a date.
Yeah, you could do a digital version of that too, is you could just change the title to processed or done or completed. So yeah, both those are good. Okay, let's keep rolling here. Where do we?
Let's talk about audits.
Oh yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I know nobody likes to hear that they're being audited, but please just keep in mind that being audited does not necessarily mean that you are doing anything wrong, okay? If you get a lot of TVM hours, then we might audit you just to check that everything is okay. Because obviously, you know, proxy hours are tied to funding, so we need to make sure everything is following the right process. But please though, relax. We really do want to help you and we will work with you if anything isn't right. If we find a problem, we're pretty forgiving. Okay. So um keep in mind, if you are audited, you will need to submit or share the lesson plan and all the materials for 2 specific lessons. So we check that lesson submission form and we just randomly choose 2 of your lessons and ask for those 2. You need to submit the lesson logs for those 2 lessons, and you need to submit all of your TVM lesson logs from the past 3 months. So this is a great time to pause for questions.
I got a question, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
How was that sandwich?
Oh,
Can I jump in again?
yeah, of course.
I actually want to say thank you for the audits because I think we all want to make sure that there's solid integrity in what we're doing. And we know that this is a kind of a different model for collecting proxy hours and that even the federal government is watching. So we have to make sure that it is meeting all of the requirements that have been set for distance learning and any other platform. And we need help with it. It's new. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Justine, I hope you saw Justine's chat. I'm glad it went smooth, Justine. It's great. Oh, Jamie's. Okay. Jamie, is yours in process? Is that what's happening?
No, I just sort of like just tabled it until this gathering today. So
Okay.
I might
Yeah,
need to
well,
chat with somebody one-on-one about it. So yeah, I'm not really sure yet what's gonna go down. So
yeah, I'm sure Elizabeth or I would be happy to stay on after and chat with you
okay.
if that works for you.
Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let's keep going here. We're gonna look at 2 exemplars, maybe more if we have time. Um, we're gonna watch 2 screencasts, one from Heather Yee at Minneapolis Adult Ed, and one from Kelly O'Brien. She works in corrections adult ed. Heather's gonna be 4 minutes, an online lesson overview, and Kelly's is a paper-based lesson, and hers is about 5 minutes. So we'll watch Heather's and then pause for a second, and then we'll watch Kelly's and then pause for a second. And then if there's anybody here, we'll have a couple minutes here if anybody wants to share either verbally or share their screen or share something that's been successful, a TVM lesson that's been successful, anything that you'd want to share about what you're doing with your learners. So you could even drop a link to something in the chat, we could show it. So that's what we're going to be doing for about the next 10-15 minutes. So let's get right into the screencast here. And let me make sure I'm going to be sharing the right tab here. Let me stop and make sure I can just share that specific tab so that we can get the audio right. Okay, I'm going to mute. You guys let me know if you can't hear the audio.
Adam, I'm not hearing any audio.
I'm hearing it, but it's so quiet. I've got it turned up all the way. Why is it so quiet? Let me try this. Share sound. Okay, let's try again.
So this is a sample of some TVM lessons that I created for exploring ratios, fractions, percents, and decimals unit that we have. These are all within Schoology. I've set it up so that the student must have a minimum score on each one to make sure that they're getting that piece mastered before they move on so that they're not frustrated because they missed a piece of information. This is a quick run through of the first of those lessons. So at the beginning of my lesson, I go through the course benchmark, the specific learning target for this lesson, the instructions, as well as the expected time and a reminder of how to do this lesson. For students who don't complete, they can come back and resume. First thing in my lesson is the instruction component, which is a short video from Khan Academy that introduces the concept of ratios and fractions and how they are related. And the students could enlarge that. This is embedded, but the students could enlarge it if they need to see it larger. After the video, there is a question just to make sure the students understood what they watched in the video. And so the next part is the guided practice. And I have a Desmos activity that the students will explore the concept, giving them the instructions how to log in, whether they're familiar or not, making sure every student is able to access it. Also telling the students how many pages of the activity to do before they continue with the activity or the question below. So they'll log in and work through the activity. As a teacher, I can see the students' work within Desmos as well as their work in Schoology. So this is one example of where they would have to get the right answer before they would move on. And then this one is making their thinking visible. And at the end, they tell me what the answer is in Schoology before they. So then after the guided practice with the Desmos activity, the students have a application question. Again, similar concept, thinking about this part to whole ratio. And again, part to whole ratio, but now in a different scenario to see if they can transfer that application. When they're finished, they submit this lesson, and within a few minutes, sometimes even faster, the lesson will score. And then with the lesson that is completed, the students can go in and see how they did. So they know whether or not they're on the right track. And I, as a teacher, can give feedback directly within the assessment results. All in all, I expect this particular lesson to take a student about 30 minutes. And that is my TVM lesson.
Okay, again, that was Heather Yee from Minneapolis ABE. Thoughts on her TVM lesson overview? Uh, comments, criticisms, questions, kudos? Anything she did well, anything that she could have improved?
I think it's really important to just make sure your learners are comfortable using the digital tools. Like I saw she used Khan Academy and then an assessment within Schoology. Um, and I'm sure she provided that instruction to them at some point, but we're always getting new learners in our classes, so just be sure everybody knows how to use all of the tools. Yeah, I had to log into Desmos, yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments, then we'll watch one more. Again, this is Kelly O'Brien, and I forget where her location is, but she works in corrections.
For some of us, our TVM lessons are entirely paper-based. Creating paper-based instruction can be tricky and fall into homework-like status really quickly. Without our usual teacher moves like videos or interactive online tools, where do we go besides just a plain textbook? Hi everyone, my name is Kelly O'Brien and I'm a teacher in a jail facility where some of my students use TVM lessons as supplements to my classes and others use them primarily just because of the structure of our facility. So here are 4 tips that I use to make sure my TVM lessons are engaging and ready to go. So my first tip is to focus on the learning targets. I always go straight to the CCRS website and copy and paste my intended standard into the document. I let my students see what standard they're working on, and I look at the standard while I'm developing the lesson myself. It's a challenge for me not to overteach sometimes and make it too easy for my students, which takes away that productive challenge for them. By keeping that standard on the front of the page while I'm making my lesson, I know that I keep rigor in mind. I also often reference the high impact indicators direct from GED.com. These are areas that students often miss on the exam, so it's really important for me as the instructor to explicitly teach to these high impact indicators. Once I take those high impact indicators and CCRS standards together and form my learning targets, I can backwards plan. Starting with that final assessment, what do I want students to show me? And then get the chunked out instruction to build up to that from there. My second tip is to always include a warm-up. If your students are anything like mine, often they're flipping through that packet to see what do I have to answer to get this done and turn it into my teacher. But if I start with a warm-up, it gets students writing right away so that they're not skipping straight to the end and often skipping past the rich learning tasks and instruction that precede the assessment. Here's an example of one of my TVM warm-ups that I have used in a lesson on main ideas and key details. As you can see on this screen, it's not academic at all. I'm just asking them to describe a favorite movie. But I'm engaging that prior knowledge, having them start to write and engage with that paper packet that I gave them. Later, when they start reading the instruction, they'll see that I'm referring back to that warm-up activity throughout and saying, when you described that movie, that was like the main idea in these ways. And it was different from the detail you showed me in these ways, etc. So I always like to include a warm-up, which also leads me to my third tip. And this tip is interspersing practice throughout the instruction. This is for that same reason that I start with a warm-up. If I have students writing on the documents, annotating the actual TVM packet or the reading that's associated with it throughout the lesson, they're less likely to just skip the instruction piece altogether, which so often happens with those paper packets. What I like to do is really focus on the depth of knowledge 1 and 2 in my practice when they are really practicing those skills from the instruction piece. And often, to be honest, I use Magic School AI to get my depth of knowledge questions. I focus on levels 1 and 2 for practice so that by the assessment, we can move up to that level 3, that strategic thinking, assessment, and analysis. And this leads me to my final tip. TVM is never done, and we don't have to be perfect. I know that many of us teachers are perfectionists, but our TVM, it doesn't have to be perfect. Releasing that idea helped me get the learning into the hands of my students a lot faster than being really anxious about doing TVM right. What I love about it is that we can continue to make tweaks once we see how students respond to the materials. We don't need to resubmit a full lesson just because we changed the wording of the instruction or added a practice problem or slightly changed the assessment. If the general idea of that lesson is the same and the SID proxy hours don't change, we can continue making tweaks as students complete the material and give us feedback. And that being said, I would love to share lessons with folks and have folks share lessons with me so we're not constantly recreating the wheel. I promise that my lessons are not perfect. They are far from perfect. But if we can give each other a little grace and think of lessons as a starting off point to put our own teacher touches on and continue to improve, I think it could be really cool that we could all share some of these paper-based lessons together.
All right. Well, that was Kelly. Thoughts? Anyone you'd like to share about anything we just saw? Anyone want to share something that's working for them? A TVM lesson activity, strategy that's your students have been engaged in or that you found fun or successful? Okay, Susan, I see your chat. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really great. I like that too.
Hi, well, I find that most of, and I'm sure she'll say the same thing. Sorry, I gotta turn my jail radio down. My students love to write. They write about everything, poetry, whatever. So I've entered a lot over the years in the journals that they've had. And one of my students right now is on page 100 and something in a book he's writing. So they have the time, and so they do love to write.
All right, thank you. Hopefully you guys are seeing the chat. Magic School, that's new to me, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You can do almost everything with the free version that you can with a subscription. I highly recommend it.
Okay, we've got a few more things to cover, so let's keep rolling here. Very quickly, Elizabeth's gonna share. Oh, sorry, go. I'll let you talk about Elizabeth.
Sure. Yeah, we sometimes get requests for teachers to share TVM lessons. And we have also kind of been noodling on the distance learning team about maybe some people would like to have a community of practice, like a Canvas course and some synchronous webinars or just times to talk about how you're using TVM. So I'll drop this link in the chat. And you can fill out this form and let us know if you're interested. There is also something called OER Commons. I'll put that link in the chat as well, where this already exists as sort of a lesson repository. And there is like an adult education community, I forget what it's called, or group or something in there. But I don't think there's really anything specifically TVM, but that might be a platform we could use to share lessons. So let me know in the Google form if you would be interested in that.
Okay, this is just a reminder that for your colleagues, is that we're not doing a lot of TVM certification webinars anymore. It's more one-on-one. We call it a coaching call, and so that's the main way teachers who are becoming TVM certified are getting certified. There's a little online form. It's linked on this slide. It's just a reminder for any of your colleagues who are curious or interested. They don't have to wait for a webinar. They can just fill out the form and someone from the TVM team will contact them really quickly. So it's available year round. It's just you, the TVM member like me or Elizabeth, and then the person and it's faster than the webinar. So just a friendly reminder to, if you have any colleagues who are considering getting TVM certified, they don't have to wait. They can just do the coaching call. Here's just a slide with a bunch of the resources that we've talked about today. We've probably put most of them in the chat. That's overwhelming. Here they're all linked on one page. As we wrap up here, again, we'll email you these slides with your CEU documents soon. But as we're wrapping up, burning questions. Did you come with any? Did you get any of them answered? What's on your mind right now? Okay, Lynn's got a question. If I use a TVM lesson that someone else has submitted, do I have to submit a TVM form that says I'm using this? Yes, you do, because you're using it with a different group of. Oh, Elizabeth is saying no.
Yeah, like Minneapolis shares all their lessons, and other teachers borrow each other's lessons all the time.
TVM certified teachers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying she doesn't have to because someone else, she's using the exact same lesson.
Yeah.
But if
I
she
mean,
modifies it or changes it so that the proxy hours change, then she would have to submit it.
yes.
Okay.
If the proxy hours are different, then yes, you definitely need to resubmit. But if it's exactly the same, just make sure you're using the same title in your records so that you can find it if you get audited or something.
Okay, Jamie, yeah, please fill it out. Someone will get in contact you with really soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other calls, we got a couple minutes left, or calls. I've been watching Frasier. I've been rewatching Frasier. If you guys remember, he was a radio host. Any other comments, questions before we wrap up here? Yeah, you guys can email us anytime too, of course. Okay, well, if anyone wants to stay, I'm going to stop the recording here. And if anybody wants to stay on and just chat with Elizabeth and I, we're happy to stay on with you a little bit longer. Thank you guys for attending, and appreciate you guys. And please reach out to us anytime.